and you just simply wait and observe the dog. So a conscience, an awakened conscience, I think is quality and trait number 5. That is very important. People who have the awakened conscience, effectively, you don't need to watch them. You can trust them. They have integrity. They have honesty. They have characters that you can say, do you know what? If anything were to happen to me, there's one person I could call, because I know that person has a good conscience and they would do unto me as I would do unto them. So that's number 5. Number 6 is very interesting. Number 6 is honor. And I'm going to probably, I should qualify that statement. Number 6, I'm going to explain in 2 parts. The first part is honor. In this particular phase, I'm going to explain what every man should look for in another, maybe companion, in this case, a loving partner. Your preference is not my concern, but in a loving partner. If it's a man in question, you're looking for someone who has honor towards you. Now, if you read the definition of honor in the dictionary, it's very misleading, because it talks about dedication and commitment to values to either a particular nation or group of people. And that's not honor I'm talking about. I'm going to explain honor in a different way. Most of you might know that I like reading ancient scripts, ancient writings. I like books. I like the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, simply because it's a very powerful, simple philosophy of life. Confucius was heavily influenced by Lao Tzu. So I read the works of Lao Tzu, I read the works of Confucius, I read the Quran, because in each of all of these great writings that have stood the test of time, they are great words of wisdom. I read the Bible, I read philosophy, I read other religious books about Hinduism, and I try to extract what works. Now, I always ask myself the question, what am I doing? What works? What isn't working? What do I need to stop doing? What must I do more of? And sometimes I don't have the answer, so I go searching, like someone on a treasure island searching for treasures, and I find treasures in these books. I was intrigued and I was fascinated by, we've heard of the 10 Commandments, and these commandments were written by Moses. The Torah, if you're familiar with the Torah, if you've read the Quran, you have an idea about the journey of the people and what transpired. Likewise, if you read the Bible, you get a different account of the same story. But I got fascinated when I read the 10 Commandments, because in reading the 10 Commandments, I came across what I considered to be an explosive experience for me. And that was this, that the account of the story says that Moses, who is a leader of a group of people, went away to meditate, have a quiet time. And he came back with the 2 stones, and inscribed on the stones were commandments, rules that people had to live by. Now, this is important, whether you believe in ancient scripts or whether you don't, doesn't matter. Don't get fixated by the story. You got to extract the lesson from it. He went away, then he came back, but he went away to spend some quality time alone, to think, because he had a problem. The problem was, we have a nation of people, but we need to know how to live and interact with each other. Right now, it's not working. No, this is very, very, very well connected to what we're sharing today. How do I select my friends? How do I choose my relationships? How do I interact with people? He came back with 2 tablets, 2 stones. Inscribed on each of the stones were 10 commandments. Well, you must forgive me. I don't know why the word 10 keeps coming in my head. 10, I don't know why I'm saying 10 rather than 12 commandments. It doesn't matter. I'm getting my teachings confused now. 12 disciples, 10 commandments. It doesn't matter. He came down with the commandments. I think there were 10. I'm pretty sure there were 10. But he came down with the 10 commandments. Now here's what's beautiful of the 10 commandments. When I started reading the commandments, initially I didn't like any of them. Well, I didn't like most of them. because it was too rigid. And I guess that's what rules are there for. You know, you set the boundaries, like I mentioned, you understand the circle that we're going to be dealing with. And I just didn't like some of them. They were too fixed and I couldn't relate to it quite easily. Not because I was rebellious, but simply because maybe I wasn't aware of, I didn't really understand. But as I studied these Ten Commandments in a little bit more detail, do you know what I realized? That the Ten Commandments had one theme, and that theme was honor. The first six were tailored to a particular individual or person, and the others were tailored to a different group of people. But the theme of the commandments was the word honor. And of all of those commandments, one of them had a promise. And that promise was honor your father and honor your mother. And the promise was that you live long and your time on earth will be long. And I'm going to segue now and say something perhaps controversial, and that is this. If you're not happy with yourself, if you find that for some reason life isn't working for you, for whatever reason, I want you to stop and ask yourself the question, am I in good terms with my father? Am I in good terms with my mother? Because I can say this with some level of commitment, I can say this with some level of conviction. Universal laws work. And I believe most people suffer because they haven't made right a wrong that they have. If you're not in good terms with your mom or your dad, for whatever reason, I don't really want to know what happened. Even if they're no longer alive, you have to forgive. You have to let go. You have to forgive and reconcile with them, even if it's in your imagination. But you have to forgive. Now, you see this in so many cases, different countries. The president is sworn in. Most people don't like the president, and so they disrespect the president. They disrespect the position. Now, you don't have to like the individual, but you must honor the position. Honor is a quality that you must look out for. So if you're a man, you ask yourself, does she honor me? Now let me give you good examples of how this works. You go out, maybe you're with someone, and you just watch how she interacts with you. I like the film 300, where King Leonidas meets this dwarf who says, I want to join the army. And King Leonidas says, raise your shield. And this dwarf can't lift his hand because of a disfigurement of his body. He can't lift his hand. He can use his other hand to strike with a spear, but he can't lift his hand. And King Leonidas says, well, you can't join the 300. You can't fight in the army because we fight side by side, one person protecting another. To the back of us, we wear our armor, so we're protected. To the rear, we're not wearing any armor, so we're exposed. But we fight side by side, so the weakest link is the person who can't defend with his shield, protect himself and protect his partner. What honor does is simply say, well, I'm going to protect the part of you that is exposed. So in every relationship, intimacy, in this particular example I'm using, if you're a man, you're simply saying, does she show me honor? Now I'm going to say something that maybe might not sound right. What I'd like you to do is just think about it. And this is going to be a good segue into the opposite side of this particular quality. So every man should be looking for a woman who shows honor. You go out, a good example, you go out and you're with your date, with your partner, and you make a mistake. You do something that perhaps you shouldn't have done publicly. You're wrong. Yes, you are wrong. But you're, in this particular instance, unwilling to accept that you're wrong. But you are wrong. Maybe it's an argument, but you're in the wrong. What does your partner do? Does she stay with you, take your side? Or does she say, no, you're wrong, and they're right? It's not about who is wrong or right. What it is about, are we in the same camp? It's about It's not about trying to feed his ego. It's about protecting his weak side. The best quality, the way you know if someone has honor towards you, is that they don't say anything. They might just say, you know what, let's let it go. Let it go. Let's talk about it later on. When you both are in your privacy, she says to you, I love you, but you were wrong. And these are the reasons why you were wrong. But she's correcting you and choosing the time. It's about timing. It's choosing the time and choosing the words to tell you that you were wrong without affecting your sense of self-worth. Because men have a very fragile ego, very fragile. I say terribly fragile. But it's about selectivity and choice and timing and choosing the right words and being attentive and being adaptable. Honor means that I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to provide respect. As a matter of fact, honor is above respect. Now, let me segue, and I'm going to make this statement as I segue. I said to a female friend of mine, now, who knows, I could be wrong. I'm born of a certain ethnicity. I live in a certain continent. I've traveled the world. I haven't seen all cultures, so who knows? I may not really know what I'm talking about. But I'm willing to be corrected, so if you have a different opinion, by all means share it. I said to a female friend of mine, probably a few years ago, I said, men don't need love. And this might come as a shock. I said, men do not need love. What men need is honor. Now, let me take a step back and say, you have to understand the difference between what men want and what men need. She said, no, I don't agree with you. Men need love. I said, well, you're making a mistake. Men don't need love. They need honor. They might want love, but they need honor. And if you notice most relationships, you can see very quickly when a woman is honoring. And the man in himself, in a way, you can tell when he feels honored. I've been around most of my friends, and I'll give you a good example. And this doesn't just happen between a man and a woman. It can happen between a mother and a son, or a son and a mother. I'll give you a good example. I've been around and I've seen occasions where I walking down the street and walking past a cinema, and a couple, they're coming out, but they have a young child, and they're arguing. And you know when someone is arguing, maybe perhaps emotions are high, and I observe and I see that her voice is much higher. She's trying to make her point. He's gone quiet, he's not even speaking, and he's holding his son. And she's raising her voice so loud so she's drawing attention, and she's criticizing him, and he keeps quiet. And at a certain point, both of our eyes lock. And that was painful, because at that point in time, I felt what he was feeling. He was being dishonored. Now, whether he was right, whether he was wrong, her timing wasn't right. That was not the right place or the right time. Number one, you didn't have to humiliate him publicly. That's number one. Number two, you shouldn't have done it in front of his son. Number three, it's all about the outcome you're trying to achieve. You must ask yourself, what is the outcome? Did you achieve the outcome? Probably not. And as I was walking past them, I was just thinking, I wish she understood this principle. You might say, well, I love you. The question is not whether you love me. The question is, do you honor me? Do you show me respect? And respect is an attitude. Honor is an act. Now I'm going to do a session. Probably I should write it down as well. I'm going to do a session which I think will be fascinating. And in this particular session, the reason that I'm going to do this session is simply because if there was one area in life that I made a lot of mistakes, I would say it was within the working environment. Back when I worked for a company in the corporate world, I didn't understand the importance of honor. I talked about the commandment. I said, commandment number 6 was honor your father and your mother, so that your days might be long. In every relationship, there's a hierarchy. It doesn't mean one person is superior to the other, but there's a hierarchy that is necessary for that relationship to thrive and survive and function. In a family, The mother and the father are above the kids. So you must show honor to those above you. In the hierarchy of the man and the woman, the man is above the woman, but not in a place of being dominated. As a matter of fact, if you put it in the right perspective, the man is the foundation because he supports, he should be the support. The woman needs support, the family needs support. So the man is not the head, the man is the foundation. But in terms of hierarchy, the hierarchy goes that way: the man, the woman, the kids. In a working relationship, in an office, you have your boss, you have yourself, or you have your boss, your supervisor, yourself, and your colleagues. Your colleagues are on the same level as you, depending on your grade. But whoever you report to in the hierarchy is above you. They need to be honored. And honor is different from respect. Respect is an attitude. Honor is displaced or is displayed by your thoughts. And people can read your thoughts by your aura, body language, by your actions, even by what you say. In many cases, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. There's a tonation. There's a tone of dishonor. There's a tone of lack of respect. Anyway, I've spoken too long on this. I should very quickly summarize. On the opposite side, if you're a lady, what you're looking for is not honor. You don't need it. You want it, but you don't need it. So unlike the man, you don't need honor. I know that sounds contradictory. The man needs honor. Yes, he'll take love. But love and honor are not the same thing. For the lady, what you want is affection. You want someone who's affectionate. Now, I'm talking about intimacy in this particular trait. Affection. I didn't say intimacy. I didn't say love per se. The reason is because love is like a chemical. And what we call the intimate love, it's like the waves of the ocean. It goes out and it comes in. The tides go out and they come in. But someone who is affectionate is a branch of love. It simply means that they have a level of discernment. They have a level of endearment towards you. It's like a kindness expressed in a soft way, but with a little bit more poise. So you want to make sure that the person is affectionate. Are they expressive? Can they express how they think, how they feel, what they're worried about? Can they anticipate your needs? Can they give a good example? Someone could hold your hands, and it could just be how they hold your hands reassures you that everything is going to be okay. So in a way, what you want with affection is someone who can express, someone who's expressive, but someone who's able to be attentive, to read, be aware, read the signal, and give you something that at the mental level, at the spiritual level, and at the physical level reassures you. Effectively, it brings you into what we call a mindful state, where spirit, mind, and body become one. Someone who can do that, you need affection to be able to do that, because in many cases, you're dealing with external stimuli and pressures. And the question is, being affectionate, can you protect the person, take them away from all of the chaos around the world or around them, and tell them everything is going to be okay? That is trait number 6. I'm going to finish with number 7, and I'll stop. Number 7 is wisdom. But let me qualify that in a different way. You want someone who has a passion for learning. And here is the point. The key to successful relationships, business, intimacy, general friendships, is not love. As a matter of fact, you don't need love for a business relationship. You don't need love per se for a normal relationship. And you do not need love for intimate relationships. The success of intimate relationships and any relationship is wisdom, meaning knowledge. Studying the individual, studying what they might need, willingness to listen. So some people say, well, I'm not romantic. Let me use that as a good example. I'm not romantic. The question is not, whether you're romantic. The question is, are you willing to learn? Because all skills are learnable. If you can learn how to ride a bike, you can learn how to be affectionate. You can learn how to be attentive. You can learn how to be adaptable. You can learn how to be more self-aware and therefore be a little bit more disciplined in how you express your consciousness. Everything is learnable. The challenge for most relationships is one party or two parties have no passion for learning. So I usually ask, I'll give you a good example. I was with a friend last week, and we were talking, because usually we talk about, as I would imagine in your case, when you are with someone that you care about, different topics come in. And in our conversation, she mentioned that she had been with a friend, and again, it was an issue that had to do with an intimate relationship that wasn't working. In this particular case, this is interesting. The lady in question felt that her partner, who she had been with for so many years, perhaps at this particular time wasn't supportive as she would have wanted. And she felt that she was trying to. Now remember, I'm talking to a friend of mine who's talking about her friend. And this girl in question, or lady in question, was saying that she literally almost has to baby feed him. In other words, she said, I've been supportive of his dreams and goals, and I've always been there for him. But I need him to be there for me, and I need him to stand up and support me. But I have to almost tell him what to do. And she said, it feels as if I'm dealing with a baby. Because emotionally, he doesn't know what to do. And I thought, isn't that interesting? And I had nothing to say about that. But then I asked my friend, I said, let me just find out from you. Let me just ask you a question. I said to her, in her opinion, I said, how many books would she say that the average person reads or studies about relationships and how to find happiness in relationships? I said, how many books would you say that the average person reads every month or every year? And she thought about it and she said, I'll be surprised if the average person read one book a month. She said, I'll be surprised if the average person even read one book a year. And I said, there you go, that's the problem. I said, because the key to successful relationships and the success of every relationship, especially intimate relationships, is not based on love. It's based on wisdom. It's based on understanding. It's based on knowledge. You have to be willing to go look for the information, study the information, understand or comprehend the information, and then apply the information. And then course correct and change and modify. But the passion and the curiosity to always be willing to learn is important. Relationships are very fragile. And here is the most important thing as I conclude. 80% of our happiness will come from our relationships. And if that is the case, then would it not make sense for you and I to say, do you know what, before I get involved, let me study what it takes to have a successful relationship. Now, if you've listened to what I've been sharing, which has gone on for a while, then you've already demonstrated a passion for learning. And you can consider yourself to be amongst the very few, because most people cannot stay focused or discipline themselves to let go of everything else and say, do you know what, this is a time for learning. I need to learn. Let me declutter my mind and just learn and listen. If 80% of your happiness will come from your relationships, and if you and I, unlike the animal kingdom, don't have instincts, we have the free will, we have the power of choice, but we come into the world naked, scared, and ignorant. If ignorance is our default position when we're born, then you and I have a responsibility to say, from the moment we're able to distinguish between what's right and wrong, we must accumulate in wisdom, putting out the bad, learning the good. And here's the reason why. Because if you don't, what you tend to find is that nature abhors a vacuum. So if you have nothing in your mind, remember this, in a garden, you plant the seeds. The weeds grow themselves. Therefore, you have to ensure that you're plucking out the weeds, meaning pluck out all the negative information that you've been accumulating and put in the right information. I might actually do a session because I'll tell you this, and I say this with sincerity, and I say it with honesty. I was very lucky, born into a great family, but we only had 3 boys. We lost one, but we had no women, no girls. And my parents separated when I was quite young. I think probably I was about 2.5. And therefore, I never really got to see the intimacy between a man and a woman expressed. And men learn from their fathers. We learn by modeling. It was only until probably my 30s, because I left home very young, pursue my dreams. It was only into my 30s that I started to see, when I went back home, I started to see my father's other side, him showing affection, because he never remarried until much, much, much later, probably until I was in my 30s. And that meant that I'd never seen a part of him that could express love and attention and caring, because what he tried to do when we were growing up, because he raised us, was let me not bring in a woman who was not going to stay. He didn't want us to be influenced by anyone. So whatever he did, I know he had friends, but everything was done outside the home. And therefore I never got to see him express care, attention, how he reacted to different scenarios. So there was a part of me that never learned. I just didn't learn. Unfortunately, it meant when I got into my teens, everything that I knew about relationships, especially intimate relationships, I learned from my peer group, from influence. And I have to say this, 95% of it was wrong. And I'm going to do a session where I'm going to explain not what I did wrong, but what I would have done right. Because there were so many times in my relationships where I would stop and say, it doesn't look like what you're doing is working. And everything tells you that the person you're with and you're spending time with is amazing. So the enemy is not without, the enemy is within. For things to change, you have to change. But I had never seen it modeled. And I started to learn when I embraced wisdom, when I decided, you know what? The knowledge that I had has got me to where I am, and is limited. The knowledge that I need to get to where I want to be, happy, healthy, prosperous, is what is stopping me, because I don't have it, from getting there. So I started to learn. And I started to read books, go to seminars, speak to people, observe, listen, speak to ladies, understand them, because I didn't understand the female psyche. And as I started to learn and listen and read and study and passionately pursue wisdom, I found that my relationships started to change. But more importantly, I realized that I was the problem. Anyway, the point I'm making is this. Trait number 7 is pursuit for learning. If you want your relationship to be great, remember this is a long game. You want someone who likes to learn, someone passionate about learning. As a matter of fact, this is interesting. I have what I call my inner circle and my outer circle. You cannot be in my inner circle except you have a passion for learning. I don't care who you are. And the reason is simple, because the best gift that I can give you is my best self. The best gift that I can give you is me being the best that I can be. The best gift you can give me is you being the best that you can be. Now, if you don't give yourself the best, then it means whatever you give me, I'm shortchanged. And whatever I give you, if I don't invest in myself, you are shortchanged. So the happiest me, the most intelligent me, the most attentive me is the best gift that I can give you. Therefore, you have to be your best self. Now, I don't go around saying qualities 1 to 7. Where do you rank? Where do you stand? I just make an observation. And I allow people to change. What I'm looking for is the potential and their willingness. But if you're going to be intimate friends with me, you must have a passion for learning. And the reason is this. If I'm going to invest my time, my energy, my resources, all of me, my presence in you, I want to make sure that you know where you're going. You must have a sense of direction. Otherwise, it's wasteful. It's wasted. So these are the 7 qualities. I'll give you a summary of these before I stop. What I wish my father taught me were the 7 qualities and the traits to look out for in every relationship. Number 1, temperament. Number 2, attentiveness. Number 3, adaptability. Number 4, kindness. Number 5, an awakened conscience. an awakened conscience. Number 6, honor for intimate relationships and affection for non-intimate relationships. Now, if you're a lady, you can switch it around. And number 7, a passion for learning, wisdom. Now, here is the most important part of everything that I've just explained. What I wish my father taught me was that these 7 qualities, that I had to have each and every one of them to be deserving of that relationship that I wanted. So, if you sit down and you make a list of all these qualities, I'd like you to put draw some columns on the paper and say, on a scale of 0 to 10, if I have to score myself on each of these qualities neutrally, if I have to bring in everyone who I've had around me as friends, and all of them were to score me, what would be the average score that I would get for each and every quality? Now, let's say, for example, and I'll use myself, let's say I scored a 2 in attentiveness and a 4 in adaptability, which is what I did in my relationship. I sat down one day and I started to write down these qualities and I started to give myself a score. What I found was I scored a 2 and a 3 in every single quality. When I started this so many years ago, there's one quality, I haven't talked about it now, but it's important, and that quality was a self-image. A good self-image. That was the only quality that I gave myself a very high score. I haven't included it in today's session for several reasons. But what I found was on all the other qualities, I was scoring a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1, because I was very honest. I then said to myself, well, the reason you don't have a great relationship like you want is because you're not deserving of the relationship. Because if these are the qualities you want in someone else, you have to be willing to have these qualities too. Because getting that relationship or getting that person is not the important thing. The question is, can you keep them? Are you deserving of keeping them? And so I set up what I called a learning process. I said, you know what? I'm going to forget about trying to find this relationship. My focus now will be to become the kind of person deserving of this relationship. And therefore, I'm going to try and increase my score in each and every one of these areas to a 9 or a 10. I had a phenomenal experience. And here's the reason. When I focused on myself, I found happiness. Because as I started to improve all of these qualities, I found that it was very useful to every relationship that I had. And therefore, I found the more I increased my score on each, I started attracting to me people with those qualities. Why? Because by that point in time, I was deserving of having that relationship. So what I wish my father taught me were the 7 qualities